Yeah, I'm not surprised. Elon Musk has been firing a lot of people, hardworking people
Yeah.
who are really only trying to keep a roof over their head and food on the table, and they're being scapegoated, in my opinion.
I wonder if he realizes that a lot of the people that are being hurt are MAGA people as well. You know, a lot of them they look for that Social Security check and they need that Medicare. So, I mean, he's not just hurting at regular Joe Blow. He's hurting everybody, including the people that voted for him.
He is, and I think that at some point it's going to blow up in his face. I think sooner than later.
Hmm.
A lot of these Republican politicians have been coming home to their constituents, having
Hmm.
town hall meetings, and these have been very raucous, contentious meetings.
Hmm.
So it got so bad that the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, told his the members of his caucus, just don't go anymore. Don't do the town hall meetings. Well, if you're not going to go and let the people know, or at least address your constituents, well, eventually they'll come to you,
Hmm.
right? And I guess that's what these protests are about. People are not being heard,
Hmm.
right? I mean, like you said, people rely on these, things, these subsidies, and I don't want to call it subsidies. Social Security you pay for. That is
You
not
paid
an
in check.
entitlement.
You are
It's
not
not an
entitled to that.
entitlement, right?
Hmm.
You earn that, just like
Hmm.
you earn your paycheck. You earn Social Security by putting your hard-earned money into that. Definitely not an entitlement. Medicaid, Medicare, those are programs, right, that a lot of people in this country rely upon for their health care.
Safety net.
Absolutely. It's probably one of the remaining safety nets, and I guess we're kind of holding on to that by a thread, But yeah, I think that for some people, the anger is misdirected. They're directing their venom at Elon Musk.
Mm.
Elon Musk could not do any of this without the consent of Donald Trump.
Mm.
Trump said in a recent interview that the buck stops with me, right? He said that Elon and like the other members of his cabinet, if you want to call Elon Musk that, they work, under his direction,
Hmm.
right? So the anger shouldn't necessarily be at Elon Musk, but more so at, you know,
Well,
Trump.
Donald Trump likes to. He's Captain Chaos. He likes to see people divided and go at each other. So by saying that, I guess he's trying to shift the weight over to himself, but he really isn't because people are still going to be mad at Elon Muskrat, and they're still going to be kind of mad at each other. You see, people are very angry right now.
And I think that that is part of um, not only Trump, that is something that has been happening through our history,
Hmm.
divide and conquer,
Hmm.
right? Um, as long as you can keep the people divided and fighting amongst themselves, they'll never direct their anger and frustration at you, the source,
Hmm.
right? They'll blame each other and say, "Well, look, you know, I'm on food stamps and I'm getting $109 a month, and you're getting $109.09. I want to know why you're
Getting
getting
at
nine
9 cents.
cents more than me,
Yeah, but
right?"
I think Fred Hampton. I think he kind of displayed that well. About he talked to when he went out and talked to the farmers. He talked to the
Mm-hmm.
white farmers. He talked to the clans people, the supremacy people, and he was explaining that the powers that be they want us to go at each other.
Well, poverty is poverty, regardless of if you live in a farming community out in the Midwest, if you live in the inner city,
Hmm.
right? It's all poverty. Everybody is struggling to, keep a roof over their head, food on the table, and it's getting harder. Inflation has driven up the cost across the board, not just eggs. I mean, I was looking at some eggs today. I was in the supermarket, and
How much were they? $8.
nine. And I said I
Mm.
simply refuse to pay $9 for eggs. I remember when I was a kid, for Halloween, we would buy eggs and throw them at each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was like 50 cents a dozen, right? And, here now the same egg is costing $9.
Mm.
If you are a family of, say, four, and you're just getting by, with your grocery list, say 3-4 months ago, right? You were just getting by. Now, that same bag of groceries is going to increase probably about 15-20%.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have it?
Well, no, and a lot of people don't have it, and it's gonna. I predict, this is just my prediction, brother. Things are gonna get worse. I think we're gonna end up going into a recession. I think that these tariffs, that the Trump administration, that the gangsters, I think it's gonna hurt us more. It's really gonna. I mean, it's gonna make us crumble and fall. It's not. It's just not gonna be good for us. Did you see the stock market? Boom.
Oh, yeah. I looked at that today and it was down almost 40, 50 points. But, we use terms like recession, depression. This country has been operating pretty much in a recession for years, right? They tell us we're not in a recession because the indicators on Wall Street show profitability. But profitability for who?
Not for us, for
Right.
the corporations.
For the corporations, for the top earners, right? They're not in a recession. But for the average working class person, right? If you think about it, the cost of living is going up, but wages have remained stagnant.
They don't want to. These corporations kill me, and this is what I can't understand about a lot of people when they do their voting. So you want to vote for someone who's down with the corporations. The corporations, they don't want you to have a union.
Mm-hmm.
The corporations don't want to give you fair wages. If the corporation had it, they wouldn't give you medical or retirement or anything.
Well, corporations exist for one reason, to make money. They do not want to give you these things. And part of the reason that Trump is rolling back a lot of these rules and regulations as it relates to workers is so that they can take more away from you as the worker.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have government agencies like OSHA that'll come around and monitor workplace safety.
Mm.
What happens if they cut OSHA, right? In terms of something as simple as the minimum wage here in Pennsylvania, is $7.25, I think.
Yeah,
right?
7.25.
Okay, so other states, of course, state minimum wage has gone up considerably. It's double that in some places. But right here in Pennsylvania, $7.25 an hour. How do you survive on that?
We were promised. I was at a meeting, and we were promised that it would eventually go up to $15. But it was going to take what they had put in would take a couple of years in order for it to take place.
Yeah, I think that.
But they were. I know that they were pushing to push it up to $15 an hour.
That was one of the promises the governor made when he was running for office, and that would eventually happen. I think you talk about like a 2 or 3 year timeline.
Yeah.
And we're getting there now, right? Up to that timeline when this is supposed to take place. But when it does happen, and people go from say $10, $11, $12 an hour to $15 an hour, was that going to be adequate?
No, it's not, because the way that they keep raising the prices on everything.
Exactly. And I did some research years ago, and I found out that the last time that salary increases were commensurate with the cost of living was 1973. That was the last time that you got an increase that was above inflation.
Well, in 1973, we also had that, we spoke about it before, COLA.
Right.
So,
right.
For those that don't know, COLA was the cost of allowance.
Cost of living
allowances.
Yeah. So you had those adjustments that, would come into play, things like Social Security and, other benefits. Those things basically don't exist anymore. And this is all because of corporate greed, right?
What year was Reagan in office?
Reagan was elected in 1980, so 80 to 88. In 89, Bush took over.
Because he did a lot of that, a lot of stuff that he implemented. We're still feeling the effects of today. like with that trickle down effect.
Right. And you know what? It wasn't just Reagan, it was Margaret Thatcher as well.
Right.
So there was an economist, his name was Milton Friedman.
I remember him.
Right.
He passed away.
I think so.
Yeah.
He had the Milton Friedman School of Economics, I believe, at the University of Chicago. And he was saying that you need to reduce the number of public employees, right? And get more people working on the private side, private industry. So you reduce the government's cost. Well, here we are, 30 some years later. The government's cost has not decreased. In fact, government spending has increased.
And so is government corruption.
Yeah, well, that's always been a problem in this country.
Yeah, but I think it's escalated quite a bit.
Well, it's always been a problem, right?
When I was in the military, and this was way back when, right?
Mhm.
Stone Age, right? So I saw what do you call it, inventory sheet one day.
Mhm.
Back then, the government was paying, I think it was $2 for a nail.
Mhm.
Could you imagine that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember seeing a report, I think it was on 60 Minutes. This was many, many years ago. They were saying the government was paying, I think, $2,000 for a hammer, right? And we're talking about a simple claw hammer, right? But so what happens is, let's say you're elected to Congress or to the Senate. Okay. After your first term, you don't get reelected. So what do? Well, you need a job, right? You don't necessarily need one, but you want a job. So you go and you become a lobbyist.
Yeah.
Right?
There you go.
So now you go back to the same people that you work with, that you have a rapport with, and you say, hey, listen, now I work for Corporation X, right? And we'd like to present to you the latest in state-of-the-art equipment.
All right.
Okay. Some of these,
you mean while they're sitting around having a steak dinner and
right, and you've contributed heavily to their campaign.
Right.
So some of these are like no bid proposals, right? You're supposed to have people bid for competition. Well, you know what? I know him. I know her. I've worked with them. I know the company. They did the right thing in terms of my campaign, right? So we're going to give the bid to them without, opening up to other companies. And that's how you end up paying $2,000 for a simple hammer or $2 for a nail.
No, well, we pay that anyway. That comes out of taxpayers' money.
Right. Yeah.
Like that $8 million a day that Elon Musk is getting.
Yeah. Well, he just got a new contract. After firing all of these people, there was a telecommunications contract that was up for renewal. So I guess the two competitors were Verizon, Starlink. Starlink is Elon Musk.
Right, Elon Musk.
Elon Musk was awarded a $2.4 billion contract for telecommunications for Starlink. Now, I would think that if you are supposedly in charge of the Department of Government Efficiency and you're out firing people, is it not a conflict of interest for you now to benefit from the firing of these people and to get lucrative contracts?
I think a lot of this is smoke and mirrors. I think a lot of this is about putting more money in the pockets of these billionaires and millionaires. That's what I think this whole like a sham. I think it's coming down to that. The tariffs, all of this stuff is just to put more money in the pockets of people who already have money.
Well, here's the thing, they're not hiding it, right? This is not something they're doing, privately. This is out in the open, right? One of the reasons I believe for this push to find so-called waste, find these dollars, I think that money is going to go toward a tax cut.
Yeah.
This $4.5 trillion tax cut, unfunded tax cut that Trump is pushing for his billionaire buddies, right? And corporations. So all of these people who have been forced out of work, who are now going into unemployment, they can get it, or you know, whatever situation that
You might
will
cut
happen
the
to
funding
them.
for that too. Who knows?
Right. You know, these folks, you know, are sacrificial lambs so that rich people can have another tax cut.
Casualties of war.
Well, you know, yeah, that might be a good way of putting it, you know,
Mhm.
because this is an economic war,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's not just us, you know, it's China, it's Mexico, it's Canada,
Mhm.
right? Those are America's largest trading partners. And the other day, I think yesterday, the day before, Trump talked about an additional 250% tariff
Mm.
on Canada, saying Canada is ripping us off.
I thought it was 25%. You said 250.
He was talking about going up as high as 250%.
Yeah, I thought today he said 25%.
Well, you
It
know,
doesn't matter. He's putting
he
his
changes
tariff,
day to day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
Canada responded anyway. You see, they took the American products off the shelf and whatnot.
oh yeah, they took all the liquor off,
Yeah.
and that's hurting the distributors in this country,
Of course.
right? Some of them from some of the reddest states ever, like
Yeah.
Kentucky, right? So yeah, Canada's responding, Mexico's responding, and China has said we're prepared for any kind of war you
That you
want to
want to
bring.
have. Yeah. Well,
We don't care. We are prepared, right?
yeah. Well, everything, just about everything you got here in America says China on it.
Right.
Mhm.
And you know that's going to be a huge problem for retailers in this country.
He seems to think that that's going to bring manufacturers back here to America, or we're going to start opening up these big manufacturing companies. I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, it's not, because the labor costs. One of the reasons they went overseas in the first place was labor costs,
Right.
right? Americans don't want to work for $5 an hour. In fact, Americans cannot afford to work for $5 an hour.
Mhm.
Eggs are, you know, some places high as $12 a dozen, right? So if you're working for $5 an hour, you can't even afford. I mean, eggs would be a luxury to
You
you.
know, $15 an hour, you can't afford a whole lot. $20 an hour is really, even 25. You're just
You're just
creeping by.
barely getting by.
Yeah, you're
right?
making it. You're
Because-
hustling. You're really hustling.
because the cost of living is going to go up,
Right.
right? And with these tariffs, more costs across the board.
Mhm.
We're not just talking about. The other day, he said, "I'm going to pause certain tariffs, like for instance, Ford
Mhm.
Motor Company." They said that with the tariffs, we're looking at an increase in cost to the consumer of up to $7,500
Mm.
in additional cost to buy a car, right?
Mm.
So we're talking clothing, we're talking food products, we're talking cars, we're talking durable goods, washing machines, everything is going to go up.
Electronics, everything.
And so with people now, they were saying that consumer confidence in the economy isn't very strong at this point,
Of course not.
right? So a lot of people are holding on to their few dollars
Mhm.
instead of going out and buying and making these purchases, because there's so much uncertainty. If you're a government worker, today. What happens Monday?
You may not have a job.
And the crazy thing is, a lot of these people are fired by email, right?
Yeah.
Right. You open up an email and it says to you, "Don't come to work anymore," right? You have been terminated.
I just wonder, is that constitutionally, can they do that?
No,
Legal?
no,
No.
they cannot. Because according to the law, we have a number of labor laws that affect hiring and firing,
Mhm.
right? And they just gone around those. Typically, if you are an employee and you are going to be let go, you are entitled to a notice,
Mhm.
to appear at a hearing, right? And if there are any sort of charges against you, to defend yourself against those charges.
Mhm.
But that's not happening.
Well, what was the woman, the anchor woman? They fired her.
From MSNBC.
Right.
Which I'm glad you mentioned.
And
because
I think they tried to bring her back.
Well, I don't know if they tried to bring it back, but somebody told me today that Trump signed an executive order to shut down MSNBC.
Wow.
Right. I didn't see this myself. I have to verify it, but I was told that he issued an executive order to shut down MSNBC because there are MSNBC newscasters that do not show him in a positive light. They ask tough questions, right?
Yeah, like Rachel Maddox.
Yeah, and several others. Well, the one they got rid of was Joy Reid.
Yeah, Joy Reid.
Right.
I think they were trying to bring her back.
I don't know if they were trying to bring her back, right? But I think probably what she's going to do is she's been podcasting,
Yeah.
right? So I think that that's something she will do that may even be more lucrative than being behind the camera, right?
And less restrictive.
Less restrictive, right? You don't have to follow a script,
right?
And as long as the advertisers, she's commercially viable, right?
Mm-hmm.
People know who she is. So a lot of the advertisers will, of course, if she's podcasting, would be like, well, yeah, sure, we'll invest,
right?
Because we're looking at it, we'll get a return on our investment. Mm-hmm. She's got a couple of million followers, so it may be best for her to just stay away from television right now. Because, what's happening is a lot of the networks are kind of falling in line.
Yeah.
Right.
ABC,
they're not going to challenge Trump.
Was it ABC, CBS, all of them like are in bed together, you can sort of say. They were all in cahoots with each other. And they were all kissing the ring.
And well, all these networks owned by corporations.
Well, I would suggest, like I tell you, with me, when I want to learn about what's going on here in the United States, I watch BBC.
Yeah.
And the other one is NPR.
Yeah. I think NPR was just kicked out of the press corps, right? Because again, you're not allowed to ask questions that are not favorable or show the president in a favorable light. And if you do that, you will be dropped from the White House press corps. And if this is true, that he issued this executive order, not that it will do anything, because this is private industry. You don't have control over private industry, at least.
Well, they need an FCC. They have to comply with the FCC rules.
They do.
They need the FCC in order for them to continue broadcasting.
Correct.
So,
But if you haven't violated FCC rules, right, then there's really nothing to fear. Well, I shouldn't say that because, I
mean, what would happen if he did it? Then you'd have to sue him, right? So, you know how long that's going to be.
Well, I'll tell you something. Trump is in charge of the FCC, right?
Mm-hmm.
He could ask the FCC to say open an investigation of certain outlets, what he would call left-leaning outlets, or and at this point, the FCC, what are they going to do? You say no, you're fired, right? So I could see that happening. And I could see maybe, MSNBC probably saw the writing on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And they let a lot of them, not just Joy Reid, but several others go preemptively, right? And now, they just want to stay on the air.
What's the guy, Joe comes on in the morning.
Joe Scarborough, yeah.
Yeah, now, didn't he go down to Florida and kiss the ring?
He and Mika Brzezinski, yes, they did go down to Mar-a-Lago.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, they did kiss the ring. I guess journalistically, their approach hasn't changed all that much, right? I guess Trump was satisfied with them coming down and, whatever form of ring kissing they did.
Yeah.
I guess he was satisfied with that. But others, not so much. Other targets that he has. And I guess, that's the signing statement or executive order. Again, it's not going to go anywhere. These are just, orders that it's basically a wish list, right? I wish they would leave me alone and just, blow smoke up my behind like all these other outlets.
Yeah.
But in terms of stopping them from going on air,
Mm.
you know what is astounding to me.
It
right?
seems like somebody could just flick a switch and they're done.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what's astounding to me. I like to watch World War II stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in America, during that time, we thought it was awful when it came to light what was happening within the Nazi, the Third Reich.
Right.
We were shocked, right, that people were being rounded up, right, and just
Brutalized.
systematically killed,
Right.
right, abused, killed. You know, the Nazis had these huge book burnings, right, where they would take books that were written by Jewish authors, those that they considered were anti the state,
Right.
had these huge book burnings. Now here we are in this country, generations later, we're banning books,
Mm.
right? You know, we are rounding people up.
They've been doing that here about the banning the books.
Mhm.
I was checking out some James Baldwin. They were doing that back in his time.
I would imagine so, but probably not on the same scale,
Yeah.
right? But now you have people, and there are a number of groups that have decided that no, these books are not, our children should not be reading these books. These books should not be in circulation for various reasons, right? Because of the subject matter or whatever.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, why was it wrong 80 years ago, but it's right now? Why was it wrong for Hitler to systematically round up people, to commit acts of genocide? Why was it wrong then, but it's not now? Why is this country supporting Israel when Israel is well, what they're doing is
Creating an
genocidal
apartheid.
acts,
No,
right?
Creating an apartheid.
So why were we against it, you know, under the Nazi regime, but today we support it?
These are the same people that supported slavery.
Okay.
I mean, their ancestors, that's what they did. That's how do you think slavery got so big in this country? They chattel slavery. And how do you think it was able to exist? Because the people allowed it to exist. In Germany, did the same thing. The people allowed it to exist.
And that's my point. The
Mhm.
people allowing it to exist in this country.
Mm-hmm.
The people are allowing the book burnings, right, or the book bans. The people are allowing the destruction of what they call DEI programs.
Mm.
The people are allowing our tax dollars to go and fund Israel's war against innocent women and children.
I still go back to Lyndon B. Johnson, man. He said it well about as long as I can make you believe that you're better than he, not only will you give me your vote, but you'll allow me to pick your pocket and take everything you got in it as well.
Well, yeah, but not just Lyndon B. Johnson. I mean, Eisenhower, when he was president, he warned us to be wary of the military-industrial complex, right? Because he saw it. You know, when JFK was president, he talked about secrecy and secret societies operating in this country. I think that's one of the reasons he was assassinated, because he wanted to make major changes. He wanted to do away with the CIA because he realized that a lot of America's problems were from CIA assassinations,
interventions,
right, overthrowing of governments, destabilization of governments. He realized that that was happening in the name of the American people. He wanted to, of course, get rid of that. He wanted to go. The big one was he wanted to go off the Federal Reserve System. Because unfortunately, and I know this is becoming more and more readily known, the Federal Reserve is a privately owned bank.
Right.
It is not
a
federal.
Right? It's not a federal institution.
There's nothing federal about it. This is a privately owned bank owned by very rich and powerful people.
Vanderbilts and who else?
Well, you got the Rothschilds, you
right.
have the Rockefellers, you have J.P. Morgan,
right.
you know, the Bronfmans, the Lees. those are the people that make the
And
world
probably
go
the
around.
Koch brothers too.
I don't know if the Koch brothers are in that same league as some of the others.
Mm.
You know, they're wealthy, right? But and there's only one left. There's only
Generational.
one left now.
Yeah, but they were generationally wealthy. Their daddies and daddies was wealthy. They passed a lot of money down.
You know, there was a movie that came out with Eddie Murphy called Trading Places.
Yeah, I remember that.
I think that was basically about the Koch brothers.
Really?
Well, it was two brothers, right? One was Mortimer. I can't remember the other was name, but they bet $1
All right.
that they could ruin Dan Aykroyd's life and take somebody like Eddie Murphy and make him
Do a switch.
do a switch. And I think that was based on the life of the Koch brothers, right? Just like there's another show on, it might be HBO. I think it's called Ascension, and that's about it's fictional, but basically it's about Rupert Murdoch and his kids and the infighting for who's going to take control when the old man isn't able to anymore. And Rupert Murdoch is in his 90s.
You wouldn't be talking about J.D. Vance and what's his name, Little Hands, Marco Rubio.
No. I'm talking about the actual Rupert Murdoch family.
I was saying the infighting.
Well, no, there's infighting there too, but this infighting is between the kids. Who's going to control the corporation when Rupert isn't able to anymore? Because I mean, Rupert Murdoch again is in his 90s, and how long can he maintain control of this huge corporation, right? We're not just here, but I mean, he's from Australia. He have holdings in Australia, holdings in England, you know, all around the world.
Yeah,
right?
he owns networks here too, you know.
He does,
Mhm.
which kind of violated some antitrust laws, but that's another story.
Mhm.
But yeah, the ongoing situation between Marco Rubio and Elon Musk. Yeah. Trump said that nothing's going on.
Yeah.
Right. You can expect that from him, right? He's never going to just tell you the truth about anything. But I think that it's interesting. Marco Rubio, right? He sat there on the couch when they had the exchange. J.D. Vance and Trump had the exchange with Zelensky.
Yeah, I couldn't.
He sat there on the couch like a I guess a deer in the headlights. Like, what the hell is going on?
That's exactly what my sentiments were.
Right. Like, what the hell is going on here?
I've never heard a president of the United States talk to another president like he was talking to a child.
Right.
And then for the vice president, I have never heard the vice president step in and say anything.
Yeah. Well,
that was like so disrespectful.
It seems to me, from my perspective, that J.D. Vance started this whole thing, right? And when he said, you know, did you ever think to thank the president? you know, my thought is thank the president. So Zelensky has come here from Ukraine to sign a deal that'll give the U.S. control about 50% of his mineral resources. Right. So I'm going to pay you for taking control of 50% of my mineral resources. I need to thank you for that. Really? You know, I guess what Trump is saying is that, well, listen, we've given you so much in the way of weapons to fight the Russians. But a few years back, before what's his name?
You know, he lied about the amount of money because he said that we had given, I think it was $159 billion or something, but Europe had already given twice that amount.
So you're saying that Trump lied?
Oh yeah, right.
I mean, really?
Well, what a hyperbole, right?
Right. You know, but Mitch McConnell, before he would just, you know, blank out and go into the vapor lock and just stand there having, you know, little strokes or whatever, he said, actually in the Senate chamber, he said they were asking him about funding for the war in Ukraine. And he said, yeah, well, don't worry, because the money's not going to Ukraine. the money is going to weapons manufacturers in this country,
right.
right? That is who is profiting, from this war,
Mm.
right? The weapons makers.
Probably Dick Cheney somewhere in the back.
Well, yeah, he was the CEO of Halliburton for a period of time,
Mm-hmm.
and Halliburton, you know, they've got their tentacles into weapons manufacturing. In fact, the war in Afghanistan, Iraq and Afghanistan. Oh, let me go back. The first Gulf War was probably the most commercial war ever
Mm-hmm.
because you had corporations basically dictating the terms of the war.
Mm-hmm.
So you had Halliburton that goes over to Iraq with all these contracts, laundry for the soldiers' uniforms, provide gasoline, right? Provide transportation trucks to move stuff back and forth. All these multi-billion-dollar contracts,
Mm-hmm.
right, awarded to one country, Halliburton, or one company, Halliburton. And how could that be when the CEO was a former vice president, right, under
Bush.
Bush, and you're giving him all of these contracts? But as long as everybody within that circle made money, who cared?
And nobody was disappointed.
And not only that, Halliburton had the contract to provide food for the soldiers, right? So when you and I were in the military, you went in the mess hall, you picked up whatever you want, took it to your tray, took it to your table, sat down and ate.
Mm-hmm.
A little different now.
Well, we didn't pick up; they gave you whatever they wanted to give you.
Well, yeah, they put it on your
Yeah.
tray. And you sat down and
sat
ate.
down and ate. Right.
Now there's additional step to that. You have to pay for that food first.
No.
Yes, the military now has that money is debited from your check.
No.
Yes, you no longer get free chow. You pay for it now, and you pay for uniforms.
How can they say we're taking care of our soldiers and our military, and you got to pay for food? And
you have to pay.
And you got to pay
food.
for you. I mean, we got three uniforms.
You got your standard issue,
right?
Right.
Anything after that, you had to go out and pay for yourself.
If you wanted your dress blues, you paid for those.
Right.
Nowadays, you're paying for this stuff.
Wow.
Right, and it comes out of your check. You see what was deducted for boots, underwear, pants, or BDU pants, BDU shirt. Oh yeah.
Now see all of this money that the military is getting because they get a big budget. Now you want to talk
Huge
about
budget.
Yeah, you want to talk about what do they call it a Ponzi scheme?
Mm-hmm.
That's it right there.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Elon Musk was calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme. And I can tell you that military and the budget and the money that they receive and what's going on with the money.
The biggest problem if they really wanted to find waste and clean it up, start with the defense contract, the defense budget.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, what's the CIA's budget?
I have no idea.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
If you go ask Congress, they don't know. If you ask the president, he can only give you a ballpark figure.
Well, Congress, they own the purse strings, didn't they know?
They don't.
They pay the bills.
They do not. If you ask them what is the budget for, say, the NSA,
mm-hmm.
all this stuff is classified. And nobody goes to ask, what are we spending to gather intelligence? Now, let's go back, right? Let's go back to when Bush is president, 9/11, right?
Right.
All of a sudden, we're told, okay, we have now developed intel that tells us that this was Osama bin Laden.
Right.
And that he is hiding in a cave in Afghanistan. Okay. While the time this happened, right, I think Osama bin Laden may have been dead already.
You think?
Yeah, because I saw.
Didn't he die under Obama?
That's what they told us.
Well,
I saw an interview given by Benazir Bhutto with David Frost.
Mm-hmm.
Benazir Bhutto herself was assassinated, but she said in the interview, "I know who killed Osama bin Laden." Years before they said we found him. So we never. Why didn't they show us the body? We found the most wanted man on the planet, Osama bin Laden. Why didn't they show us his body? Why did they claim that they dropped it in the ocean?
I have no idea, young
They
man.
told us it was too graphic to show. You go to any video store, right? Any video game store.
Oh, please.
Don't they have Grand Theft Auto?
Oh, please.
Don't they have these games where you're shooting zombies or these war games that are just as graphic?
You mean the tutors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just as graphic.
No, the tutors.
Right. Shooters for, for shooters, right?
Yeah. They're teaching our kids to feel no remorse.
Right.
Because they don't. You see the video games, they go in there where they must kill 1,000 people while they're playing.
Right.
Right.
So why can't you show us this man's body?
They're teaching them how to sneak around.
Well, listen, they showed us, what's his name? Saddam Hussein's body. They showed us that. They showed us Muammar Gaddafi's body. So why not show us Osama bin Laden?
I have no idea, man.
Because he was dead already when SEAL Team 6 said they found him and took him out. That man was dead for years. We might have killed somebody that looked like him, right? Well, we certainly didn't kill a man that's dead already.
Yeah.
And if you go back and you look at it, you find that
you know me. I'm gonna tell you, I haven't really done a lot of research on that.
Do some. You find out.
It's hard for me to comment on that.
Well, if you do a little research, it won't take long. You go on the internet, you find out that Osama bin Laden was a CIA asset.
I knew that already.
Going back years.
That I did know.
Going back years.
But
right?
a lot of times people put out these conspiracy theories.
No, but it's come out, right, that he was a CIA asset.
Yeah.
Now, how does the CIA lose an asset? Come on now. This does not happen. This was a situation where we wanted regime change in Iraq. Why? Oil. What did the Bush family do? What was their business?
We didn't get the oil anyway.
They did.
Oh, did they?
But what was the Bush family's business?
I don't know. Weren't they in the oil?
Yes.
No.
They were into energy.
From Texas.
They claim to be from Texas. They're from New York.
Get out of here.
The Bush family is originally from New York.
You mean with the big cowboy hats and everything?
They went out to Texas. They got into the oil industry.
Right.
But George Bush, the first George Bush under Reagan, who was vice president under Reagan, his father was Prescott Bush. His father worked for the Bank of New York.
Oh.
His father, Prescott Bush, was funneling money to the Nazis.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds like Trump's father.
Prescott Bush was funneling money to the Nazis in his capacity as a banker. And there was a young man who was a government accountant. And his job was to find out which American families, wealthy and powerful American families, were funding the Nazis. That young man's name was Morgenthau.
Back in the 30s, though, they had a big Nazi movement here.
They took over Madison Square Garden. Right, I think that was 1933.
Yeah.
Right. They had a Nazi rally.
Yeah.
Either 33 or 35, they had a Nazi rally.
Trump's father organized that and funded that.
I did hear that he had some involvement in it.
It was the same day that Trump had his when he went up to Madison Square Garden, just for his little rally thing. It just happened to be so. It was the same day.
Well, the guy who was a government accountant, Morgenthau, he was killed. They wouldn't allow him to release his report because too many wealthy, powerful families' names on the list. So they made a deal with his son, Robert Morgenthau Jr.
Yeah, I heard the name.
District Attorney of Manhattan for his entire life. From the time he graduated law school, the powers that be told him, okay, it's payback for your father. We'll allow you to be district attorney of the county of New York. And you can stay there as long as you like it. He never was defeated.
Is that an appointed position or is it elected?
That's elected. But I guess they always made sure he had all the money he needed to continue to win re-election. Robert Morgenthau was district attorney. He was in his 90s.
Wow.
He passed now. But that was payback for the murder of his father, who had discovered that, the American families funding the Nazis. Yeah.
I wonder who paid back Trump.
Oh,
Mm.
good question. Well, the Trump family had money from their brothels in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
They went from Germany to Canada and they established brothels and other businesses in Canada. And then when they came into this country, um, they got into real estate.
Mm.
Trump's grandfather began to get into real estate, right? When he came into this country, he did a little bit in Canada. He owned some properties in Canada. But when he came into the United States, they got into real estate
Yeah, he
developing.
wouldn't let black people move into his buildings.
Yeah, Trump's father.
Yeah.
Yeah, would not. Well, Trump wouldn't either.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of his the place they developed in Manhattan, and I think Roosevelt Island as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, but you see that now because all of this anti DEI stuff that's happening, right?
Remember, I told you that's something people don't understand it. A lot of people don't know what the acronyms mean. They don't even know what it means.
Right.
If you actually have it first, they don't know.
Right.
So what the politicians and the powers that be, first they took these initials and politicized it.
Mm-hmm.
Then they criminalized it, like they did with woke, the CRT, right? The same thing. They criminalized it, and then they made the people, their constituents, afraid of it.
Well, yeah.
And came back and said, we can do something about it.
Well, Tucker Carlson, and this was going back a few years, he had been railing against, CRT, critical race theory, for some time. So one day he was interviewing someone, I can't remember who he was interviewing, but the person asked him, well, Tucker, what is CRT? And Tucker Carlson said, well, I don't really know. So how can you be against something if you don't know what it is? And unfortunately, a lot of people in this country, because we get the bulk of our information from some media outlet, right, who has a vested interest in keeping you ignorant, right, because that's how you get your information. Anything they tell you to make you afraid, make you distrustful of it, you're not going to question it. You're just going to say, well, if these guys are telling me this is a bad thing, then it must be a bad thing. I don't really need to know what it is. I just know it's bad.
And that's why my man said, what did he say? I love the poorly educated.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're easily manipulated.
Easily manipulated.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of during the dark ages, if you want to say, because that's where the attitude kind of came from. Yeah, all the poor people, they couldn't read. They were all, about 95% was illiterate. The only people that could read or had any were the rich people.
Right.
And that's kind of, I feel like we're going backwards, going back to a time like that.
We are.
Yeah.
Well, you're banning books.
And they also kind of influencing people not to seek higher education.
Exactly. And, between the book bans, between the money that's being stripped away from education, between the educational standards that are lowered every year. So,
I went to school for a substantial amount of time to receive my master's in IT. And I hear these guys on the radio, you can be in IT in 12 weeks, 6 weeks. And like, how can you do that? With the amount of time it took me to learn, it's like, my question is, okay, if you can do that, what are they not teaching? Even if you took it for a year, there's 3 more years left that you didn't get.
Well, you know something? When you go to college, you have to take a number of prerequisites. What happens if they just get rid of those prerequisites and you just learn your field?
Well, then you might as well go get a certification. Because college is supposed to be there to help you to become a critical thinker.
But when you said, how can they do it in a year? Well, they get rid of prerequisites, right?
Yeah.
And all you do is you focus on, if you're a plumber, instead of studying geography and mathematics, you're going to study plumbing, right? But, the idea is to dumb people down, because the less you know, the less likely you are to ask tough questions.
That's right.
Right. You're just going to sit there and take it. Right. And they're going to tell you, hey, listen, guy, It's not us, it's them,
Mm.
right? We, the rich people, we're your friends, right? We are the ones providing jobs for you. That's a lie, but they don't know it. We are the ones that are making America strong with your help. That's a lie, but of course, they
And
don't
you know the
question
biggest lie? We're doing this for the American people.
that. Exactly, exactly. And of course, right, you believe these things because, well, you know what? I see them on Fox News, and Fox News always waves the American flag. It's everywhere. And anybody that loves this country is all right with me, right? Even though, what they're doing is destroying the country, it's okay because they're waving the flag while they destroy it.
Yeah, patriots.
So,
Patriots that never served. Patriots.
you know, so even though with all of the wildfires we have out west, the wild weather in the center of the country and here on the East Coast, there are still some people that will say climate change
Is a hoax.
not just a hoax, but it's all naturally occurring, right?
Well, I have a theory with that. This is my little hypothesis. Yeah, these things would happen naturally because if you look at the time that the world was formed, we've gone through one stage of evolution to another. We've gone through the ice age. We've gone through the separation of the continent. So that means the world is constantly evolving. But by what we're doing as human beings, and I got to put us, which I really hate because we don't really have control over any of that. But the powers that be, they're destroying the planet.
Well,
They're
absolutely.
speeding it up.
Well, what they're doing is the Earth itself will fight back.
Yeah,
right?
she's trying to heal
The
herself.
Earth will defend itself, and a lot of these things are reactions to man-made pollutants. And I mean, right now you can't drink the water, you can't breathe the air. In places like China, people walk around wearing masks all year round.
I'm gonna tell you, when I was a kid, do you remember? I walked in the store one day, and they were selling water.
Right,
I almost was shocked.
right.
I had never seen sell water.
Because our generation, we drunk from the
The tap.
we call it the Johnny Pump,
Yeah.
right? The hydrant. We drank from there. We drank. We went in the house. It was water in the refrigerator came right from the tap,
Yeah.
and we drank that and never had a problem. But I got a question for you and TP.
Mr. T.
Right. So here's the question. Now, for Black folks in this country, we always talk about the advancements that we made, right? I think a lot of that advancing stopped when segregation ended, right? I say now we're going backwards or we're in a holding pattern.
That's not a really question. You're the choir speaking to, what do you call it? Preacher speaking
But
to the choir.
here's my question, right? So I remember as a kid, people in my family, older generation, would use the term colored people, right? Okay. So that was considered a negative term, right? We got rid of that. Now it's referred to as people of color. What's the difference?
Nothing.
No, there is a difference.
What's the difference?
Because when they said you were colored, they actually were referring to one ethnic group. So when they say people of color, now they become more inclusive because that also includes, let's say, I don't know, somebody from Puerto Rico, somebody from India, anybody pretty much that has the melanin in their skin.
Everybody has melanin.
Europeans
have melanin.
that you can see.
Right. I mean,
Okay.
they just have a different
Yeah,
form
yeah,
of
but
melanin.
the ones that you can see.
Yeah, but I mean,
The
if
brown
you say,
people, the
if you
black
say
people.
a person is colored or a person of color, what is the difference in terminology?
Semantics.
So, have we really advanced? Or are we thinking we advanced by just turning the term around instead of saying colored people, people of color? I thought about that and said, what the hell is the difference?
I think we pay too much homage for things that don't matter. I think at this point we need to truly start trying to create this Black Wall Street again, and starting to be coming together more as a community. Now, I just wanted to give a shout out to some community people. The National Guard here, this is what they do. Every third Tuesday of the month, for veterans, they actually help feed the families. They get
Mhm.
boxes of food, milk, eggs, so forth. It's called Military Share. If anybody want to check that out.
Mhm.
And then I also want to give Claudette Williams a shout out because she's doing her thing with the museum, the Women's Veterans Museum. She's trying to pull it together, trying to hold it together. They're paying bills out of their pocket, like Terry over there, paying the bills out of their pocket.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, Claudette's a great lady. And while we sending some shout outs, I want to let people know in the area that on May 18th there's going to be a Haitian Flag Day celebration in Mountain View Park, which is located in Channesville, right on Sullivan Trail. This will be the first of its kind in this area. I think it's important that we have more events that display culture, the culture of Black people from around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we really don't have that in this area. Well, I mean, we do have Juneteenth and a few other events, but it is important now with the push against DEI, with the push against apparently people of color, which I think is just derogatory as colored people.
Well, I think that's going to take a community.
It's going to take a concerted effort for sure.
Yeah,
But
I think it's going to take all of us, not just some of us. I think it's going to take all of us to make that concerted effort like that.
And I think we got to stop using that term, people of color, and just say, look, we're Black, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or
we can just skip that. We're human.
Exactly.
How about that? How about the only race is the human race,
right?
Because if you belong to one race and I belong to another, that means we're in a race. Somebody's gonna have to win.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just want to let people know that please come out and support this effort. It's going to be May 18th, Mountain View Park. It's going to start about 11 o'clock in the morning. So if you're not doing nothing that day, come out and learn a little bit about Haitian culture, food, dance, things of that nature.
You'll have a good time. Come out and support. You will have a great time. Okay, so we're pretty much at the end of our show. Thank you for tuning in to GenesisRadio.com. Again, anytime you want to give us a call, that would be 888-304-4401. We got some very exciting shows here going on at Genesis. And don't forget about Unity in the Community this summer. Make sure you come out and you have a good time. Okay? All right. Peace. We're out.
Peace.